Good morning, everybody. I thought today, since we are very much entering Martian energy with the Mars rover Perseverance landing, and also being at the beginning of the month of March, which is named after Mars, I thought we might look at incense ingredients or charm ingredients or spell ingredients which have Martian energies. So the planet Mars is under the element of fire. It's a very masculine planet, a very active planet, and it's the day of Mars is Tuesday, named after Tu, the Norse god of war. Its number is 9, and the colour, which is why I'm working on a red cloth today, the colour is red and strong autumn colours. It rules the planetary, the astrological signs of Aries and Scorpio. The metal is iron. And the qualities of Mars, if we're talking about working with Martian qualities, are assertiveness, masculinity, spontaneity. It rules over competition, confrontation, war, focus, adventurousness, courage, male sexuality and sport. So basically, if you want to call in Martian energy, it will be because you're involved in some sort of competitive venture that you wish to win. It may be that you are feeling a little bit vulnerable, a little bit lacking in strength, and so you call in extra powers of assertion, courage and so on by harnessing Martian energy. So that's the nature of Mars really, and Martian energy. And you can put together an incense, you can make up a charm bag, you can do any of these things to call the Martian energy into your psyche at the time. Another thing to do, because we haven't talked about carrying amulets or talisman, but another thing you can do is include the rune Tu, which is to do with victory, in your charm bag. So you can draw, it looks like an arrow pointing upwards basically, Tu, which is the sort of Norse god of war, but that is full of Martian energy as well. So if you want a symbol to put into your charm bag, the Norse rune Tu would be a good choice. So that's the nature of Martian energy. There is a file in the on the group that goes briefly through the numbers and the correspondences and the qualities of each of the planets. So if you want to refer to that in the files, you can do. One of the things that I was really pleased with and touched by after the last video which I did on smudging were the comments that some of you made, and made at length, which is very encouraging. But the number of people that actually said that they would prefer to work with our native herbs that we grow, because you can make a greater connection with them, because you can meditate with them, understand them, you care for them, and so you build up that connection. And I thought that was absolutely fantastic. As you know, I've got a fairly extensive herb garden, and I like to make contact with my herbs. I like to sit with them when they're actively growing. I also like to sort of notice what they do during the winter months as well, when they're asleep, when they're not doing very much. But I like to sit with them. I like to meditate with them, because in that way they tell me what they do. And also plants benefit enormously from your quality of attention. So even if it's your house plants that you're attending to, but not just by watering them and feeding them, but also by looking at them, touching at them, talking to them if you're daft enough, as I am. But they do respond to that kind of level of attention. We are all vibrating energy. So I was thinking about planetary correspondences and the fact that one or two people have said, well, how did these planetary correspondences come about? And of course they've been with us for many, many hundreds of years. Originally probably put together by the Greek philosophers. But you don't have to slavishly follow a book, because these correspondences come from various things. For example, if you look at the appearance, for example, of a herb or a plant, you've got holly. Holly is a Martian plant, and it's prickly. It's stiff, it's glossy, it's shiny, it's prickly, and a lot of prickly plants come under the rulership of Mars. Nettle is one example. Monkey puzzle tree is attributed to Mars. Gorse is another one. That's got spines. Hawthorn. And then another attribute is heat. For example, chili comes under the rulership of Mars, as does ginger. Horseradish. These are curry leaves, dried curry leaves. They're not particularly hot, but the association is there. So if you prefer to arrive at your own attributions, your own, look at the herb, look at its physical appearance, taste it, as long as it's not poisonous. Look at where it grows. Does it like arid conditions? Does it like a lot of sun? These are all things that will give you clues as to the correspondence of the herb. So what we've got under the rulership of Mars are all things that you can include in an incense or a charm bag. Now I find this particularly interesting because some of these things are not particularly aromatic. We've got, you can rate, there are lots, these are just a few substances that come under the rulership of Mars. There are lots and lots more. So we've got allspice. Allspice is an actual spice. It's not, as some people think, a mixture of things like ginger and cinnamon and nutmeg. It is a plant, allspice plant, and you can get it in berries if you prefer, which you can crush in your pestle and mortar. I just happen at the moment to have bought some ground allspice because Tesco didn't have the berries. I do prefer to get the berries. This is some horseradish, which we grow in the garden, and we like to sometimes to make our own horseradish sauce. This has been in the fridge, but it would obviously, if you were using it for incense purposes, you'd need to slice it and let it dry. This is ginger, and again you'd need to slice this and let it dry before you used it in an incense. And this is galangal, which is already dried and brittle and could be crumbled into an incense, and it's very similar. I think it's in the same family as ginger, so hot flavours. Chili, of course. Now, but these you'd have to be very, very careful if you were putting chili or ginger or horseradish into an incense. Just a little bit, just a token to say that you've brought in that energy. One thing you could do, if you wanted to, the number of Jupiter is 9. And I was thinking maybe you could use 9 allspice berries if you wanted to, crushed in a pestle and mortar, 9 chilies, 9 chili seeds, not 9 chilies. Once it's dry, this is on the way to being dry, it's not dry yet. One of the plants that doesn't add any, won't add any fragrance, but will add only energies, is holly, which of course can be dried and can be snipped. I don't think you'd manage to crush this in a pestle and mortar. You need to snip it. The other similar, although I don't think it's coming very strongly at the moment, is nettle, and that won't add any smell to your incense, but it will add the energies of Mars. Plus things like hawthorn, gorse. These won't necessarily. I mean, you could dry the gorse plant, but you could also be quite nice to dry some of the gorse flowers to put in your incense. And that would be a very pleasant thing to do. It would add to the look of the thing as well. There aren't many resins that are under the rulership of Mars. One of them is pine, which we talked about some time ago, and the other one is dragon's blood. Now these are both Martian incenses, but because dragon's blood is not particularly pleasant smelling and it's very expensive and you tend to use it only by the pinch, I wouldn't use that as a base resin. We've talked in the past about having quite a lot of resin in your incense as a base to slow down the burn rate. You could use pine, but I would see actually nothing wrong with using good old frankincense or possibly copal if you wanted a resin base for your Martian incense, because they are both ruled by the sun and they are both fiery resins. So copal or frankincense could be bought in instead of pine, for example, since not many resins are under the rulership of Mars. One of the other substances that's ruled by Mars is black pepper, and that refers to the actual black pepper berries, which you can crush in a pestle and mortar, the powdered black pepper, or the oil of black pepper would be. Similarly, ginger oil would be permissible as well. And then we've got basil, which is a beautiful smell, but it likes a lot of sun, it likes a sunny position. It's a very masculine herb, it's a cheerful herb, it's said to bring courage. So you could dry some basil leaves and put basil leaves in your incense. Now this is just a few of the things, but you can see the characteristics that go to make up a Martian herb. Prickles, stings, hot flavours. These are the things that sort of are the characteristics of botanicals and spices and so on ruled by Mars. So you can come to your own conclusion about what is a Martian herb, what is not a Martian herb. And if you disagree with the books, because very often the books disagree with one another, then go with your own gut feeling. If you've done as some of you suggest, and that's meditated with your herbs, got to know your herbs, you know them, you know where they're coming from. So go with your own gut feeling. There's nothing wrong with that. And don't forget, intention is all. If you and the herb agree that it's a herb under the rulership of Venus, then go with the rulership of Venus and include it in a Venusian incense. Okay, I hope that helps if you're exploring correspondences. And also the other nice thing I think is it gives us other alternatives to use as incense ingredients, things that we perhaps wouldn't think of initially, because a lot of these things can be pressed into service as incenses. Okay, I'd be glad to know your thoughts. I was really appreciative of the people that commented on the last video. Thanks very much. See you next week.